This case took 17 years to solve. It cost the police force $4 million in total, and after everything, an internal police review was required to work out why the police had seemed to have tunnel vision on the wrong suspect, when the real perpetrator was still out there for 17 years, committing further crimes on other women. This is the case of Emma Caldwell. Emma Caldwell was born on the 31st of January 1978 in Cardross, Argyll in Bute, Scotland. She was described as having a very happy childhood. As she was growing up, Emma Caldwell always had a keen interest in horses, and as she got older, she became a horse riding teacher in her early 20s.
Just magical child, loved horses. We had a thing in the family, and she used to say, "What would you like, Emma?" And she'd say, "A horsey. A horsey." And we would say, "When would you like a horsey?" Right now I'd like a horsey." She was just a happy child. Happy. We had a very happy life.
In 1998, her older sister died of cancer. It was a very hard time for the family. Everyone struggled with the upset, and it was said that Emma went into quite a deep depression because of it. At the time, she was dating a boyfriend, and he encouraged Emma to try that substance, the one that you inject, to try and cope with her grief. Emma really loved her boyfriend. She believed in him. She listened and followed by taking it. Of course, we all know how that goes and how it takes over your whole entire life.
We were rather naive about it.
Yes, we were.
We had absolutely no idea how much Emma was using, and we weren't aware what Emma was doing to earn that money.
And by 2002, she had moved in with him into Govan area of Glasgow. Emma Caldwell's parents said that they were left in a blind panic when they realised that she was addicted to this substance. They did not know how to help her or what to do. Her parents attempted to support her. By now, Emma was living at a hostel, and her family visited her regularly at the hostel. They saw her weekly and helped her by doing her washing, buying her food, and giving her credit for her phone. Although it was difficult seeing Emma like this, they didn't want to give her money for worry that she would spend it on the drug. Emma often returned home to the family to have Sunday dinners. Her family lived in Renfrewshire. Her parents said that they were naive about the cost of this substance. They had no idea how much it costed Emma, how much she was spending on it, or where she even got her cash from for the habit. They hated to think of her stealing. Her family initially did not realise that she had turned to such drastic measures to substance her addiction. Emma's parents were overjoyed when they heard of her plan to seek rehabilitation, but that did not happen. They arranged to meet her on the 6th of April, but when she did not show up, her family grew concerned. They contacted the boyfriend, but he'd not seen her. They could not reach her by phone, but they continued to try. And after contacting the police and starting a missing persons report, they spent weeks searching for Emma around Glasgow. They visited all the places that Emma might have been. And on the 8th of May, 2005, a month later, her body was found at Limefield Woods. It was around 8 miles southwest of South Lancashire. A dog walker had stumbled across her. His dog had remained steadfast when called, and when the dog walker went over to retrieve his dog, he realised that it was stood directly beside a dead body, face down in a ditch. In a state of shock, he called one of his family members initially, who told him to call 911, and in a recorded 911 call, he spoke to police saying that it was a female and that she was in the middle of nowhere. He also mentioned that he could see that the body was unclothed and it had a garrote around its neck. A pathologist who examined Emma Caldwell's body and declared it was her confirmed the clear, identifiable cause of death was compression of the neck. Her report stated that the pattern of injury was more in keeping with manual strangulation, but the application of a ligature, either instead of or in addition to the hand, could not be excluded. This could have been the plastic cord or line visible at the back of Emma Caldwell's neck when she was found. The delayed discovery complicated forensic efforts, hindering DNA recovery due to decomposition. Emma's mobile phone, her clothing and other personal items were later recovered. The case featured on the British TV show BBC Crime Watch on the 15th of June 2005.
Glasgow. Let's piece together what we know about the killer. He was in Glasgow on the night of Monday, the 4th of April. He's got a car and he knows the area near Roberton in Lanarkshire, where Emma's body was found. It is somebody who's taken other prostitutes there, but she was wearing a coat exactly the same as this one. It's like it's a kind of fake sheepskin coat, denim coat, which has never been found, has it?
No, we sourced this jacket, which is an exact copy right down to colour, from China in order for the piece tonight. That jacket is missing together with Emma's dark leather handbag.
Right,
we do know there was some interaction between these two individuals and Emma. One of them is most certainly a male who's wearing a very distinctive hoop top, which you've seen on the piece.
Might have been a Celtic top, might not have been, can't be sure.
We're unsure of the colour. However, our extensive door-to-door investigations near that scene have failed to reveal the identities of these individuals. I would ask anyone who knows who these individuals are, or the individuals themselves, to call us tonight.
Police reported new leads as a result of the show, with people calling in after saying that they'd seen her, and Strathclyde Police performed DNA testing on items found on Emma's body, but no DNA traces were found. There were traces found on swabs of her personal areas, however, they were not enough to identify a particular individual. Tests were also carried out on 3 used condoms found near Limefield Woods, as well as cigarette ends and condom wrappers, but they did not match the DNA of any suspects or Emma Caldwell. Glasgow had seen several women who were engaged in the street walking murdered between 1991 and 2005, but only 2 of those cases had been solved, with many people suspecting that because she was selling her body, she was not worthy of a full investigation. With accusations that Strathclyde Police had not done enough to investigate, the first major lead came when Emma's phone history was investigated, with her last contact being with a previously unknown Turkish man. This led to an investigation in which 4 Turkish men were arrested. They were alleged to have strangled Emma at the Turkish cafe in Glasgow before dumping her body in the woods. The investigation became the most expensive scene in Strathclyde Police's history, totalling $4 million. Extensive audio and visual surveillance were done on these 4 men. There were plainclothes police in cars, houses and businesses used to stake out, with video surveillance taken. The men were said to have been regular users of the street women, and was said to have brought these women to their cafe where they sat around, drank, gambled and used substances. Further evidence emerged when a search found a speck of blood identified as being Emma's, and one of the last pings on her mobile phone was linked to a location near the cafe. Officers also searched the home of a barber who was an amateur musician and also played at the cafe at times. At this cafe, they found a cable that the police believed was almost identical to the one around Emma's body. One of the men was later arrested and convicted of sex assaulting of other women, some from this investigation. They needed a Turkish man to translate this video footage that they'd taken, but the case against the men collapsed when this police officer translating the tapes claimed there was no evidence that the men had discussed the murder at all. 2 specialists who reviewed the tapes said that no evidence on the tapes indicated that they'd even discussed killing Emma, and one of these Turkish men then sued the newly formed Scotland Yard for £100,000, where it was settled out of court for damages for wrongful arrest and 80 days on remand. A detective working on the case said that the investigation had been a colossal waste of money looking into these Turkish men, and he believed that the investigation continued because senior officials in Strathclyde Police wanted a conviction due to the record sums spent on this investigation. Another former detective said that because the operation against the Turkish men was so big and such an advanced stage, it blinded officers from looking at a more realistic suspect. In April 2015, the Sunday Mail newspaper published an article naming Ian Packer as a person who had been questioned by police initially, just weeks after Emma's body was found. A police investigation into identifying the sources of the article would later be deemed unlawful. He was identified by other street workers as a regular user of the girls, who was infatuated with Emma Caldwell and changed his story with police numerous times. These women said that Ian had taken them into the woods in South Lancashire, near where Emma's body was discovered. Women working in the street had complained about Ian Packer in 2005, putting him in a beware book which collected warnings from the girls about potentially dangerous clients. Numerous women identified Ian Packer and complained about the attacks that he had perpetrated on them and other clients. These women felt their concerns had been ignored by the police because they were street girls. Ian Packer was described as a Jekyll and Hyde character, and one woman said he usually treated her like a lady, but on one occasion he became angry when she removed all of her clothes because she was outside and it was cold. He then apologised to this woman for leaving her scared. Ian Packer was found to have admitted to police that he had taken street workers to the woods in South Lancashire, but he was ruled out of the initial investigation as police had been so taken up with the Turkish cafe. The specific reason for this is currently unknown. In 2018, Ian Packer was interviewed by journalist Samantha Poling for a documentary on the BBC. Ian Packer denied killing Emma Caldwell and said that he had never been violent towards any women. But within days of this documentary being broadcast, one of his former partners went to the police to complain that Ian Packer had pushed her onto the bed, put his hands around her throat and choked her to almost death, and endangered her life. Ian Packer later admitted the charge, as well as a charge of stalking and breaching a court order preventing him from contacting this victim. He was convicted and sentenced to jail for 2 years. On the 25th of February 2022, Ian Packer was arrested for Emma Caldwell's murder, 17 years after her death.
And this is in relation to Emma Caldwell. Tell me your involvement relating to the rape and murder of Emma Caldwell.
He initially faced 45 other charges against 27 other women, 3 men and 1 boy. 11 of the charges were RAPE. The trial against Ian Packer began in January 2024, only last year, with him pleading not guilty to 36 charges of physical and sex attacks against multiple different women. During the trial, Ian Packer admitted that he had previously continued having relations with Emma and she had asked him to stop. Ian Packer admitted that when asked by Samantha Poling in the documentary if he had RAPED'd Emma, he had not been honest when he denied this. He said that he had denied RAPing Emma. He stated that his behaviour made him feel ashamed. However, he maintained that encounters with Emma were largely consensual and that he did not kill her. During further evidence, he also admitted that he had lied to police when he had said that he didn't know Emma during the initial investigation, and said that he visited the general area where Emma's body was found with her a maximum of 6 times. Further evidence was provided that linked Ian with the location where Emma's body was found. Soil samples from around the ditch where Emma Caldwell's body was discovered were compared to soil samples taken from the footwell of a van used by Ian Packer. the court heard the chosen technique to compare soil samples was to analyse the pollen in them. The forest samples and the van samples each contained the same types and quantities of pollen. The court heard that was 99% chance that they matched at least 3 of the 6 soil samples. During the trial, the jurors, court staff and the judge Lord Beckett, as well as Ian Packer, were all driven to the alleged scene of the crime at Limefield Woods, some 41 miles from Glasgow High Court. The closing statement by the defence counsel asked the jury to examine the evidence alone, not rumour, not gossip, not innuendo. And when the advocate deputy suggested that the women can't be wrong, that doesn't mean they were right. The advocate deputy for the prosecution said in the closing statement, there was overwhelming circumstantial evidence to convict Ian Packer. The advocate deputy listed 17 circumstances which he had proved Ian Packer murdered Miss Caldwell in 2005. He said the most compelling of all was the place where her body was found. There is nothing to suggest that anyone other than Ian Packer had any reason for strangling streetwalkers in Limefield Woods. There are 16 streetwalkers who have accused Ian Packer of being violent towards them. A further 11 women have accused him of grabbing their throats and trying to throttle them. He finished by saying that the prosecution believed that the strangulation and the murder of Emma was the most horrifying chapter in what the evidence tells us was Ian Packer's appalling cause of sexual violence towards women that lasted over a period of 2 decades. On the 28th of February 2024, Ian Packer was found guilty of the murder of Emma and of 32 other charges against 22 women. 3 charges were not proven. Ian Packer was sentenced to a minimum term of 36 years in prison before he would be allowed to apply for parole, the second longest sentence Scottish legal history has ever heard. The mother of Emma said she had been betrayed by the original police investigation and was angry it had taken 17 years for Ian Packer to have been brought to justice. The lawyer representing the Caldwell family called for a public inquiry in response to this and said officers who worked on the original investigation must answer for their conduct, as Ian Packer went on to attack numerous other women after Emma. He further stated that this is the most prolific SCX offender in the history of Scotland and one of the most prolific SCX offenders in the history of the United Kingdom. A spokesperson for the Scottish Police apologised for the way that Strathclyde Police handled the case. A significant number of women and girls who showed remarkable courage to speak up at the time did not get the justice and support they needed and deserved from Strathclyde Police. We have reflected and learnt from the initial investigation and subsequent re-investigation. Significant changes have been made to our organisational culture, response, victim care and processes for all these types of crimes. On the 5th of March 2024, Emma Caldwell's mother met with an MP and appealed for a public inquiry into handling of her own daughter's case.
It wouldn't have mattered to us. She was our daughter and we loved her no matter what. No matter what anyone thinks or anyone says about her. She was our child, our beautiful daughter, and we loved her. To lose one daughter is unthinkable. It's a terrible experience. And you think, nothing like this could ever happen to me in my life again. This is as bad as it's ever going to be, to lose your child. And now Emma.